12 years of marriage, 7 years in the same house, and 15 minutes for everything to fall apart. The clock read 8:43 p.m. when I found the messages on Michael's phone. The screen flashed with a notification, and in that moment, my life changed completely. It was on an ordinary Thursday. Michael was in the shower and his phone rang on the kitchen table. Normally, I respected his privacy, but something had felt different over the past few weeks. The extended hours at work, a strange cologne that I sometimes caught on his shirts, and the increasing number of business dinners. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to access more stories like this. Jen, I need to work late tomorrow. Why don't you have dinner with your mom? It's been a while since you two talked, Michael suggested while having his coffee, avoiding eye contact. I agreed with a smile, but the way he tapped his fingers on the table betrayed his nervousness. When he left for work, he kissed my forehead instead of my lips, like he used to do every day for the past 12 years. That afternoon, while making our bed, I found a restaurant receipt in the pocket of his blazer. It was from an upscale place we'd never been to together. The amount suggested it was for 2 people. That's when I decided to check his phone for the first time in our marriage. There it was, conversations with someone saved as Amanda from HR. They were planning to meet at our house the next day when I was supposedly having dinner with my mom. Michael had written, "It's going to be perfect. Jennifer will be out all night. Bring that lingerie you showed me in the picture. I've prepared a special surprise for you." My whole body froze. 12 years together, building dreams, the house we bought together after saving for so long, the sleepless nights when he fell ill 2 years ago and I stayed by his side, the vacations postponed so we could invest in the future, everything crumbling within seconds. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Something inside me transformed at that moment. A strange heat rose from my chest to my face, but it wasn't sadness. It was clarity, a determination I had never felt before. I took a deep breath and started to plan. Michael wanted a special night? I was going to give him exactly that. For the entire following morning, I kept things normal. I made coffee as always, smiled when he mentioned dinner with my mom again, and said I would be back late. "Enjoy your alone time at home," I said, kissing his cheek. "You've been so busy lately." When Michael left for work, I began my preparations. First, I called my lawyer friend. We had studied together at college and had kept in touch. Within 2 hours, she sent me the preliminary divorce papers I needed. I set up small, discreet cameras in the living room and bedroom, a Christmas gift from last year that Michael had never cared about, saying it was too much technology for our simple home. Then I went shopping. I bought his favorite expensive red wine, aromatic candles, the same ones we used on our honeymoon, ingredients for an elaborate dinner, filet mignon, fresh asparagus, potatoes, and strawberries with chocolate for dessert. I spent a small fortune, but it would be the last time I wasted money on Michael. I left home at 5:00 p.m., just as I had promised. I drove to the mall and parked in a discreet spot. I waited for an hour. Then I returned quietly. I entered through the back door, using the key we had hidden in the garden for emergencies. The house was silent. I placed the groceries in the kitchen and started setting everything up. I arranged the dining table with our best dishes, the crystal glasses we got at our wedding, candles and fresh flowers. Then I started cooking. Every dish was prepared carefully, just like in the early years of our relationship when I still had the energy to impress him. At 7:30 p.m., I heard Michael's car parking. Quickly, I hid in the small office next to the kitchen. Through the crack in the door, I watched him walk in and noticed the set table. Michael looked confused, scanning the room as if trying to understand what was happening. He checked his phone, maybe to see if he had misunderstood the meeting time. He unbuttoned his blazer and fixed his hair in front of the hallway mirror, the same one where so many times I adjusted his tie before we went out together. The doorbell rang. Michael took a deep breath, straightened up and opened the door. She was beautiful, dark hair, fair skin, wearing a simple red dress that accentuated her figure. Younger than me, maybe in her early 20s, probably a recent graduate starting her career at the company where he had been the financial director for the past 8 years. "Wow, what a surprise!" she exclaimed as she looked at the set table and the lit candles. You really went all out." Michael smiled, that same smile that had won me over at our first date at college. Just something special for a special woman. I felt a sting in my chest, but kept my breathing steady. They kissed for a long time at the entrance. He set his purse on the side table, the same one we had bought together at an antique shop during our 5-year anniversary trip. "Want some wine?" he asked, leading her to the living room. "I'd love some," she replied as she sat comfortably on our gray sofa. Michael opened the wine I had left on the table. He filled 2 glasses and handed one to her. "To our future," he toasted. "To our future," she echoed. Every word felt like a tiny jab in my heart. But I remained still, watching. Michael played some soft music, our jazz playlist. They talked for a few minutes, laughed at inside jokes, discussed coworkers. She mentioned how excited she was about the possibility of a promotion. "With the financial director by your side, that promotion is practically yours," Michael said, caressing her face. "And your wife? Is she really going to be out all night?" the young woman asked, glancing around with a hint of discomfort. It was the first time I noticed any hesitation in her behavior. "Jennifer is having dinner with her mother. They haven't seen each other in months. It'll take a while," Michael said, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "By the way, are you hungry? Seems like we have a full dinner waiting for us." "You cooked all that?" she asked, genuinely impressed. "Let's just say I have my hidden talents," he replied, taking her hand and leading her to the dining room. I decided it was time. I quietly left the office and positioned myself at the entrance of the dining room. I stood there, watching as Michael pulled out a chair for her to sit. Neither of them had noticed me yet. "This dinner looks amazing," she commented, admiring the carefully prepared dishes. "Not as amazing as you in that dress," Michael replied, leaning in to kiss her. "Agreed, the dinner is really well done," I finally said. They both froze. Michael slowly turned around, his face shifting from passion to shock and then to pure terror. The girl quickly stood up, knocking over the wine glass, which shattered on the floor and stained our white carpet with an intense red. A perfect metaphor for the moment. Jennifer?" Michael stuttered. "What are you? I thought you were with your mom." "Clearly," I said, keeping my voice calm and almost uninterested. I entered the dining room and placed my purse on the table. "Please don't get up. The food will get cold." The girl looked from Michael to me, visibly panicked. I didn't know he was married," she mumbled. "He said he lived alone." "Really?" I asked as I poured myself a glass of wine. "How interesting, considering we've been living together for 7 years in this house we bought with my grandmother's inheritance." Michael tried to regain his composure. "Jennifer, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like." I laughed softly. "Michael, please. Have the decency not to use that cliché. It really is exactly what it looks like." I turned to the girl. "What's your name? The real one, not Amanda from HR." "Sophia," she replied, looking genuinely mortified. "Well, Sophia, you seem way too young to waste your time with a 40-year-old married man who lies about his marital status." I grabbed a chair and sat down at the table. Michael was always good at spinning convincing stories. In our first year of marriage, he convinced me he was working overtime when he was really out at bars with his friends. Michael stood up, his face red with anger and shame. "Enough, Jennifer. You're making an unnecessary scene." "An unnecessary scene?" I kept my voice steady. "No, dear. A scene is bringing your mistress into the house we built together. A scene is planning a romantic dinner in the bed we've slept in for 12 years. Sophia gathered her purse. "I need to leave." "No, Sophia, please stay," I said, gesturing for her to sit. "You're as much a victim as I am in this situation. You deserve to hear what I have to say." She hesitated, then sat back down, keeping a distance from Michael, who remained standing, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Michael," I continued calmly, "do you remember last year when I had that issue at work? How you insisted on installing security cameras in our house because you were worried about my safety while I worked late?" His face paled instantly. "Those cameras still work perfectly," I said, pulling my phone from my purse. "In fact, they're broadcasting live right now. To the family group that includes your parents, your brother, and interestingly, your boss, who has always treated me like his daughter." Michael lunged, trying to grab my phone. You didn't do that. I did, and the broadcast started about... I glanced at the clock. Approximately 40 minutes ago. Sophia stood up again, tears welling in her eyes. I really didn't know. He told me he was divorced. I believe you, Sophia, I said, smiling gently at her. Michael always had a special talent for manipulating people. She grabbed her purse and coat. I'm sorry. I truly am. And she hurried out, the front door slamming behind her. We sat in silence for a moment. Michael and I, like strangers in the house we once called our home. You had no right, he finally said, his voice trembling with contained anger. No right? I repeated slowly. It's interesting you mention rights when you were planning to cheat on your wife in the house we built together. Michael ran his hands through his hair, that habitual gesture when he was nervous. It was a mistake, just one mistake. It didn't need to turn into a public circus. Just one mistake? I laughed humorlessly. The restaurant receipts, the overtime, the sudden business trips over the past 6 months say otherwise. His face showed a brief moment of surprise before he composed himself. You've been spying on me? No, Michael, I was just paying attention. I placed my hands on the table. All the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. He sat down, suddenly looking exhausted. What do you want, Jennifer? Money? The house? Funny you mention that. I pulled an envelope from my purse and slid it across the table. Here it is. The divorce papers, already prepared. All you need to do is sign. Michael opened the envelope with trembling fingers and scanned the documents. You can't be serious. This leaves me with practically nothing. Fair, considering it was my inheritance that paid the down payment on this house. And it was my salary that sustained our life while you spent your early years building your career. This is revenge, he murmured. No, Michael. It's consequence. I pushed a pen towards him. You can sign now so we can settle this civilly, or we can go to court. With today's video, I'm sure a judge would be very interested in your version of the events. Michael stared at me for long seconds, his eyes reflecting a mix of rage and disbelief. Finally, he grabbed the pen and signed every page too forcefully, nearly tearing the paper. Hope you're satisfied, he said, pushing the documents back to me. Satisfied? No. But free? Yes. I tucked the papers into my purse and stood up. You have until tomorrow to collect your personal belongings. I left some boxes in the closet. My lawyer will be in touch to finalize the details. Michael remained seated, staring at the untouched dinner. 12 years, Jennifer. 12 years wasted. They weren't wasted, Michael. They were invested in a valuable lesson. I picked up my purse and coat. You can keep the dinner. After all, I prepared it especially for tonight. I walked to the door without looking back. The feeling was strange, as if I were leaving not just a house, but a version of myself, a version that accepted less than she deserved, that tolerated dubious explanations, that prioritized a false sense of peace over the truth. In the car, I finally allowed some tears to fall, not for Michael, but for the lost time, the years invested in someone who never truly appreciated me. I turned on the engine and drove aimlessly for a while, feeling the relief grow with every mile that took me further away from that house. I eventually stopped at a small cafe downtown, a cozy place we had never been to, a space free of shared memories. I ordered a black coffee, no sugar. Its bitterness matched the moment. Sitting alone and watching people pass by the window, I realized I wasn't lonely. For the first time in a long time, I was truly at peace with myself. I had faced the betrayal not with hysteria or pleading, but with dignity and planning. I picked up my phone and sent a message to my lawyer friend, thanking her for her quick help. Then I turned off the cameras remotely. The broadcast had done its job. The coming days would be tough, with family and friends learning what happened, practical issues of the divorce, and finding a new place to live. But at that moment, feeling the warmth of the coffee cup in my hands, I realized I was ready for it all. The dinner I prepared wasn't just a trap for Michael. It was a farewell ritual for myself. One last service to a relationship that no longer existed. The cafe was nearly empty when I finished my drink. I left a generous tip and went out into the night. The air was cool and fresh after a light rain. I took a deep breath, as if it were the first time. In a way, it really was. I walked back to my car slowly, my steps lighter than when I entered the cafe. I didn't have a set plan for where to spend the night, maybe a hotel, maybe a friend's place, but uncertainty no longer scared me. On the horizon, the city lights shone like possibilities. My life was mine again, without lies, without betrayals, without sacrificing my dignity for someone who didn't respect me. The future was unknown, but for the first time in a very long time, it was entirely my own. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to access more stories like this. The dinner for one. I prepared that night wasn't about revenge. I realized now. It was about reclaiming my rightful place at the table of life. And this time, I wasn't going to share that space with someone who didn't deserve it. I have to say, the dinner is really well done, I finally said as they froze, turning that romantic moment into a nightmare neither of them would ever forget. Michael, these cameras still work perfectly, I revealed calmly. In fact, they're broadcasting live right now to your boss, your parents, and your entire family. You can keep the dinner, he said coolly, handing over the divorce papers that would leave him with nothing. After all, I prepared it specifically to mark the end of our marriage and the